guests and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
It's Monday night at 9 p.m. and time for Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Dr. Ricky Siegel is a certified sex therapist, educator, and supervisor, and his brother Larry Siegel is a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator. The Siegel Brothers are here to answer all your questions about sex and sexuality, but we're unsure who to ask, including questions you didn't even know you had. They will also welcome guests from around the globe to talk about a wide variety of topics and issues within the fascinating world of sexuality. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Sex Talk.
Good evening, and welcome to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. My name is Dr. Richard Siegel. I'm a certified sex therapist.
And I'm Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
And my super awesome big brother.
That's my favorite role.
Good to see you again.
Same here, same here. How's everything going?
Very well, very well. We're back here again to talk sex.
Yes, indeed.
We are every Monday night here on WWNN and South Florida Radio. We're on 95.3 FM and 1470 AM. And we're live streaming on Facebook. If you're watching us there, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. Please go ahead and hit that like and share button liberally.
Please.
And if you want to call into the station and join the conversation tonight, you can do so at 888-565-1470.
You still have to look at that, don't you? You still don't know by heart.
It's only been a couple years. It takes me a little while to remember.
Yes, indeed. And as long as we're giving out numbers, if anybody is interested in any type of counseling work or therapy or training through Modern Sex Therapy Institutes, how might they get a hold of you for that?
Well, you can learn more by visiting www.modernsextherapyinstitutes.com, or you can get in touch with me through email to ricky@modernsextherapy.com, or you can give me a call. My phone number is going to be crawling across the bottom of the screen there in a minute, 561-809-1080 for a consult.
Yes,
Thank you for remembering.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So what's new and exciting this week? It's been a strange week. It really has.
Well, so I hate this time of year. I hate changing the clocks back and getting dark early.
That's a big part of it.
Even in Florida, it affects my mood.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's almost like seasonal affective disorder.
It's exactly what it is. Yeah. But at least it's not cold.
That's right. That's right. At least we're not in Denmark.
Yes. I was complaining about the air conditioning in the studio. It's a little chilly in here. Yeah.
Indeed. So, all this political stuff, it seems the only thing that is going on in the world, at least if you watch any sort of mainstream media outlet, is this impeachment stuff.
Right.
So there has to be more things going on in the world. There have to be more things happening, more things we can talk about than that.
Well, it's a lot more fun to talk about sex.
Yep. Yeah.
But as we talk about on this show very often, as two old, seasoned sexuality educators and clinical sexologists, too often what we end up having to talk about is unsexy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? That people need a reminder to be sexy, and that the things that are sexy require a little thought sometimes. Nothing heavy, no big deal.
No, and what we mean by sexy is fun and light and sort of stoking the fire and churning up, getting those juices flowing, literally as well as figuratively.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, making sex fun. You know, it's amazing how much pressure people put on themselves when it comes to sex. And, you know, I have to say, as much, and I don't want to make it an either or, you know, do males or females or any particular gender identity or expression have any sort of hold on, the sexual pressure and feeling. No, it's all around. But I think there are particular pressures that
scripts,
men
right?
feel.
We get scripts growing up.
Exactly.
Unwritten scripts, rules that we think we're supposed to follow along, that men can't express emotion, or women have to be passive.
Absolutely. And, you know, I don't want to name names because, you know, people get a little, and rightly so. But, you know, somebody that we know had posted something online, and they were just sort of relating an incident that they had on a plane, sitting next to somebody, a mom and a young son. and heard a comment to the effect that the mother was telling the son, I mean, it's basically okay for men to cry, but men are just hardwired not to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is a mother telling her son
Yes.
that
Yes.
men are not supposed to cry because we're
Well, it's not that they're
wired-
generally, I mean, not really supposed to. I mean, they really, they can. I mean, it's basically kind of okay, it seemed. Again, I'm reading into this, but it really seemed like it was a very non-committal kind of start. But then it had to go inside, but we're hardwired not to. And I think that expectation of men being divorced from their emotions and their feelings is really at the core of a lot of the issues that I think we talk about and people in general talking about. And,
Yeah,
and I
that's
really
good.
don't particularly like that term toxic masculinity, but that's sort
Well,
of
it's everywhere.
the term that's being bandied about. And
It
I think
seems you
that's the
can't
core.
say masculinity anymore without toxic in front of it.
Yeah, it really is. It's become such a trigger, and it's become so loaded for so many people, which is why I was really so glad that you sort of gave me the notice to watch that comedian
Oh, yes.
on HBO on Saturday night.
Daniel Sloss on
Yeah.
HBO. You've got to check him out. I don't know. He came out of nowhere. I've never heard of him before. All of a sudden, he's doing a special on HBO, and he is brilliant.
Yeah.
Not just a funny comedian, but the whole latter half of his stand-up was about these issues.
And that's not a word that we often use, but I would agree with that. There are certain points that he was making, and yeah, of course, it's humor, which means we can't write it off because most humor is truth.
Well,
You
right.
know, and just making it more palatable.
Who are the last truth tellers in this world?
Yeah. Yeah, we've heard that. Even George Carlin, Richard Jeni, people from the past. Comedians are the only people who are truly licensed to tell the truth because they're really beholden to no one.
Well, but also people don't want to hear the truth unless it makes them laugh and diffuse
Exactly.
the
It's the
emotion.
sugar that helps make the medicine go down, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, people get angry when you tell them the truth.
Exactly, which has always been the success of shows like The Daily Show, and someone like John Oliver. There's some heavy information. There's some heavy news that they're bringing out there, but in a way that allows people to hear it and maybe even stand apart from it and look at it and be able to get the point. So I loved that whole special. And there are, I think, some points that, like you said, we talk about a lot.
Yeah.
And I have to say, there are a couple of points that, that was us. I mean, he was kind of talking about us
Right.
in so many ways. And there's that unspoken voice. Right? Now, if I could start just with that, the one thing that just grabbed me, sort of like you had me at hello kind of moment for that, was early on he was talking about, well, first of all, he started out just opening up saying, I love children. And then acknowledging why does that make audiences uncomfortable?
Right.
For guys to say, I love children, and I love the piece that he did about how women can make these comments about, oh, these babies, I love these babies so much, I love these kids so much, make my ovaries want to explode. But what if a guy, and we have felt this, we have
I
these
don't wanna know
girls
where
in our
you're going.
lives, these kids that just the love and everything about it, it just makes you feel this like, I wouldn't say it, but that idea of, why can't we say our testicles want to explode? We love them so
Right,
much.
because you'll be labeled a pedophile and want to be locked up and
Yeah.
kept far away from children.
That whole idea of being able to so openly and passionately love even children, it really is part of that, not a rule, but part of the script that it's not really okay for guys to express.
Yeah. Do you remember we promised here on the air a couple months ago that June of 2020 we were going to resume that program we haven't done in many years.
Yes.
Called Daddy's Little Girl.
Yes.
The role of fathers in the healthy sexual development of their daughters. Mm-hmm. And there was a time back in the 90s when I got an invitation to talk about that program at a conference. Mm-hmm. And the conference coordinator said, we really, we're looking forward to the presentation. We're excited to have it part of the conference, but some of the conference committee wanted to know if you would consider changing the name. Mm-hmm. And of course, I said, why? And she said, because a couple of the women were triggered by the expression "daddy's little girl" because they suffered incest.
Right.
And I said, no. I said, especially for that reason. If that's the connotation that daddy's little girl is going to have, then I'd rather not do the program than change it and give in and allow daddy's little girl to become synonymous with incest.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's the whole sort of branding the victim. It keeps them stuck in that victimhood. It keeps them stuck in an attachment to that experience. And I'm sorry, but this just what Marty Klein in America's War on Sex referred to as the victim parade, the part of the Oprahification of America, where all we do is parade victims around and we get people to embrace their victimhood, and we don't realize how we are hurting them.
Well, what could be more disempowering?
Yeah, that's the word.
To someone than to puff them up as a victim and make their whole identity about what's been done to them instead of reclaiming, taking it back. That's empowerment to me.
Yes, and not staying and moving beyond, moving past.
Right.
It's a shame this phrase has been used so cavalierly, and I think sometimes even in a weaponized way. But the idea of getting over something, to be looking, to be able to get over it, to work through it, to move beyond it, that doesn't happen when people are just sort of stuck in that. It's almost like that victimness is like a buoy in the middle of the ocean, and they're just hanging on to that for dear life, and that's the only thing that seems to be keeping them afloat.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but that's not healthy. And I think that therapists who do that kind of work and bring people to that place and keep people in that place are doing a grave disservice to their clients and patients.
I agree. And unfortunately, most therapists are uncomfortable talking about anything to do with sexuality. And way too often, they either step in it or drink the Kool-Aid, like when it comes to extramarital affairs or pornography or so many issues that get identified as men's problems.
Right.
And then the therapy is it's doomed right before it starts because the therapist just sides with the cheated on or sides with the victim.
That's the script.
Right? Like the person the partner who's not looking at porn is somehow victimized by the partner's interest in it. Where did we get that?
Yeah. And again,
if you and I
people
are in
need
a
to hear
couple-
that word again. That's incredibly
If
disempowering.
you or I are a couple, right, and I happen to like oysters, and you're absolutely disgusted by them,
You're traumatizing
hurting
me.
you?
Your
Just because I
shellfish
like
is
them?
traumatizing me.
Now, if I eat them in front of you every day because I know it drives you crazy, that's cruel, right? And I can decide, I love oysters, but I love you more, so I'm not going to eat them anymore. Or I'm just not going to eat them around you.
But that would even be a healthier script, because unfortunately, with the victim as the star of the script, and I know how loaded that is that I just said, but the victim being the star of the script, it now comes down to, even if you are off by yourself, eating your oysters without me, I feel betrayed and traumatized.
Right.
And that's got to stop. It really does. That has got to stop. It's not helpful. We've asked this question before. How were all of these strong, powerful feminist women in the 70s and the 80s end up raising girls with such little resilience? I don't understand that.
Yeah. Almost preparing them to be victimized.
Well, almost conditioning them to, yeah. Yeah, it really is. And create and reinforcing that expectation that they're going to be. Because the other side of that story, part of that script, is that, again, girls are victims, men are toxic.
Men are perpetrators.
Right.
Right?
Right. And that's the only dynamic, even with affairs, even with watching porn, it's a victim-perpetrator narrative.
Yeah, a long time ago we brought up that classic scenario of the dad, the shotgun wielding dad on the porch, right, having to protect his daughter from the young man who's going to come sniffing around is automatically presumed to be a predator, trying to get something from the daughter. The daughter is perceived to be just too stupid to take care of herself and protect herself. So the dad has to rely on lethal force, if that's what it takes, to protect his daughter's virtue.
Right. Right. Now, that dynamic, and as you're saying that, it strikes me how that runs through the script of all guys at any age, even with wives and girlfriends. How many times do guys say to their partners, whoever they may be, but it's usually more commonly aside in a relationship where there's the male and female partner. It's a heterosexual relationship where the guy will say to his girlfriend or wife who may want to go somewhere where there could be an ex or there could be single guys. And basically it's like, oh, don't you trust me, honey? Oh, I trust you. I don't trust them.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of bad on both levels.
course,
It's a lie because he doesn't trust her.
Right, he doesn't trust
and B,
her to be
he's
able to.
labeling all men as perpetrators.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm not going to send my woman out somewhere where she's going to be raped. Right? It's a business meeting. I don't care. There are guys there. I mean, that's the mentality.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Right? And it's guys are perpetuating that as well. So it's not just
But see,
something that
it's all of the
guys can
gender
take offense
roles.
at.
All the gender roles need a little
Yes.
rehab here, right? Because sometimes, avid feminists that we are.
Well, gender needs a rehab, much less gender
that's
roles.
What I mean,
Yeah.
right. I think it's fair to say that we're feminists. We've certainly worked we worked for Planned Parenthood for long enough, right? But we've also received comments of doing male bashing of our own.
That's right.
And it's not about male bashing.
No, it really isn't. It really isn't. We're saying do better.
Yeah,
We're not saying
everybody.
it's your fault.
Right. And everybody could use to do better.
Right. Now, one thing I do have to make an exception, having just said that. We are kind of saying it's your fault when we're talking about rape and sexual abuse.
Sure.
That there's no way to dress that one up.
Right. I agree. And that's the theme of our show, that most of these sexual health consequences are men's issues.
Yeah.
Even though they've historically been put on women.
Right.
Women are the ones that have to make sure they go out with a friend so they don't get raped.
Yeah.
Nobody's making sure guys go out and not rape. Right? Women have to bear the burden for not getting pregnant.
Yeah.
Even STDs, which of course know no gender, that's part of the whole thing that women have to prevent.
Absolutely. Even in terms of really just maintaining the stability of a relationship, has always been put on women as well. And this is that historic thing. That's why I even wrote down that whole concept of charm and etiquette classes. How women's roles were always defined as you're all about getting a relationship, and then once you do, it's about keeping that relationship. And a big part of etiquette classes was learning how to not make a fuss, how to not make a big deal, especially if somebody, or especially a guy, particularly your guy, does something that in some way upsets you. Don't make a fuss.
That's right. It's on
you. Don't talk about it. You don't make a big thing. It's really on them. I mean, I would love to have seen, if women have to take charm and etiquette classes, how about men take a don't rape class? It's not really a lot to ask. Just, spend a little time and just learn. Don't rape.
Yeah.
Don't sexually abuse. Then maybe we wouldn't have to be having all of these conversations and debates and people getting insulted and other people getting insulted on behalf of the people that aren't getting insulted. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It is. And none of these words that we hear constantly now have changed their meaning, right? Consent doesn't mean anything differently now than it always has.
Well, that's right. Starting and with the top and what you were saying at the very beginning, this idea of rules and scripts. We're not talking about changing the rules. Absolutely not. We're talking about rewriting the script, but we're not talking about changing the rules. It shouldn't be something that's so confusing, because that point, exactly what you just made, we're not changing the definition of consent. We're just asking guys to be a little bit more considerate of it, to think about it a little bit more.
Yes.
Right? To maybe try to solicit and elicit it, ask. That's all we're talking about. Right? Responsibility. What's different about responsibility other than we're asking men to just put a little bit more into that, take a little bit more of it.
That's right.
Right? I mean, it's really all the conversation is about. So, all of these issues and all of these sphincters that are tightening, I mean, who's going to say, well, no, you can't tell me that I can't abuse someone anymore. No, first of all, nobody's saying that. Abuse is still abuse. But we want guys in particular to have a better understanding of what that means and what that may look like, and how it's not just what we want to say. I mean, I've been saying this for years in a relationship, and it translates to a lot of different things. But I usually talk about it in relation to love in a relationship, that it's never enough to love somebody the way you need to love them. We always have to learn how to love them the way they need to be loved.
Wow.
And otherwise, we're just speaking a different language. Right? It doesn't matter what my intention is, it can't be received. And when we talk about basic communication and these kinds of, negotiating consent, right? All right, fine. Let's use that term, negotiating consent. For guys, I want to say that a big part of negotiation is listening. Not just dictating,
Right.
but listening.
And asking.
Yes, absolutely. This is really all we're asking of guys. Just let's rewrite the script just a little bit so that it may better reflect healthy dynamics, win-win situations, less sexual abuse, less sense of victimization.
Less a view of sex as an opportunity to get something from someone instead of sharing something with someone.
Exactly. Right? Yes, it's not a conquest. It's not, and well, okay, hold on. In all fairness, sometimes, sometimes it may be. Just like it is okay, and this is another one of those loaded things. Please understand the context. It is okay to, every once in a while, to sexualize people.
Objectify.
That
is what we
sexualize
do.
them. Absolutely. Look at other people as pieces of proverbial meat. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem becomes when there's nothing else to balance that, when that becomes the way we define the gaze, we define the interaction.
Right.
And that's not how we should be defining sexual experiences, as conquests and transactions and getting as much as I can. Yeah, a little bit more of that mutuality.
Yes.
That sharing of pleasure. And there's that word, right? That's often so missing.
Pleasure?
Yeah. Talk about getting off. Don't really talk about pleasure. And that kind of also sets up the unrealistic goal that, and I mean, women almost by default are used to orgasm not occurring every time they have a sexual experience.
Right.
How do most guys deal with the idea that you don't orgasm every time?
No. It's 100% or catastrophe.
That's it.
That's it. Just one time something goes wrong, and that's it.
That's
Doom.
right. But even the framing of something going wrong. What about some hours-long experience with a partner that is just pleasure upon pleasure and, waves and waves of ecstasy, but no orgasm? So was that a failure? Did something go wrong?
In a lot of people's heads.
That's right.
If they don't have especially guys, if they don't have the release, the ejaculation, then they feel, pent up. And of course, a lot's been said about a lot of mythology around sexual tension not released.
I know, it kind of blows my mind that blue balls is still a thing.
There are guys who believe this.
I know.
That something bad will happen to
know.
you if you get excited and don't finish.
I suppose there are still people that believe in vagina dentata. So, there's no shortage of mythological beasts that plague the sexual experience for people.
Yeah, for centuries.
Yeah, especially when we don't really have, good education to bring people up in.
Mm-hmm.
And to show what we're really talking about, what we're really doing here. Because, we talk about the permission giving. Why do guys need, and I wish guys really have, please, and we give you permission to be intimate. We give you permission to tell people you love that you love them, even if they happen to be males. That's one of those things that we just get all jammed up. It's not that women feel or have more emotions than men. They're just given more permission to express them.
Sure.
So what happens for guys that get all jammed up, especially when emotions get really heavy and they come up really, really hard with a lot of force, most men have difficulty identifying those and even knowing how to let them out.
Right.
So remember that term we talked about that underlies a lot of domestic abuse, violence for men, that alexithymia.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That just literally translates to not having a language for emotions. Mm-hmm. If we can't talk about them, if we can't name them.
Well, the only emotions men are given permission to express are anger and sadness.
Right.
But sadness
right.
better
even,
if it's angry.
I don't know about sadness. No. I wouldn't. I don't know that I would. I would
That
say
can be
anger
expressed
and
as-
pleasure.
Well, sure.
Right. Which, again, my head just defaulted to. That's probably why Tim Allen was able to make a career out of because that kind of fits both of those. Mm-hmm. That's the expression that could be of both anger and of pleasure. And for a lot of guys, that's kind of the extent of it. Right? And again, that's not a male bashing thing. That's not a male thing, because that's sort of how we have been victimized in a lot of ways. We have been denied that opportunity to develop a relationship with our emotions and feelings. We have been sort of denied entry to our own selves in that stuff.
Wow.
Right? Kills me when I hear people say to a little kid, be strong.
Don't cry.
Don't cry. Especially in a situation where, let's say, a kid loses his father and people are telling him, you got to be strong for your mother now. You're the man of the house. I know this is not 1953, but this is still being said. Yeah. This is still very much part of the script for people. So that's really all we want to do. Let men have the permission to be intimate, to be expressive, to have some kind of connection to their feelings and emotions. If we can connect to that, we can express them more appropriately. I think that's a big part of the problem.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this was a pretty low-key show, but kind of deep, important things we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And ongoing themes.
We need a 21st century rewrite for men.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
What sex means in relationships and how men express themselves emotionally, intimately, sexually, non-sexually.
Yes, and it will strengthen all of our relationships, especially our relationships with each other.
Yeah. Well, the music means we got to shut up for
yes,
this week.
Indeed.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be here next Monday and every Monday for Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
Thank you. Have a great week.
You've been listening to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us every Monday night at 9 p.m. on WNN, 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. Or watch live streaming video at AMP2 TV Productions on Facebook, or look for the shows on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again next week.